Hi, everybody. We have a bunch of people here, and we have the Honorable Lisa Catherwood doing a session on mental health, which we all, I'm sure, will benefit from. I don't know about anybody else, but I had a week of, I don't know, Zoom frustration or whatever you call it. So I'm sure being in quarantine has an effect on all of us. So as far as announcement goes, I would go to the YTP website. All the community of practices are listed there. And we have one coming up this Thursday and every Thursday for a while. So with that, does any other TAP have any announcements?
Just a reminder to keep getting in those spring and summer hours and schedule forms that we sent out. And if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we can help you fill that out appropriately.
Okay, anything else? Then I'm going to get started. So today we're talking about mental health, and what we're going to talk about is what is mental health versus having a mental health disorder. Things to look out for, like early signs of maybe some mental health distress, some self-care strategies for you guys, as well as like some strategies that you might be teaching students. How COVID-19 has affected mental health in people, and then mandatory reporting. So what is mental health versus having a mental health disorder? So mental health is something that we all have. So we all have emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, and it changes throughout different stages of our lives. But a mental health disorder, or having, there's many factors that contribute to people having mental health problems, including biological factors such as genes or brain chemistry, life experiences, such as if people have had trauma or abuse that has happened in their lives, or even family history of mental health problems. And so the DSM-5 says that mental health disorder is behavioral or psychological syndrome or a pattern that occurs in an individual. It can reflect underlying psychobiological dysfunction. So the mental health disorder is, sorry, my little control thing is in the way of my screen. It's merely like, common stressors that happen. It'll mean that you maybe can't control them. You can't control your behaviors and things that happen with them. So that is more of a mental health disorder. So we all have positive mental health, which allows people to realize their full potential. It helps us know coping skills of how to handle different kinds of stresses that happen in our lives. It helps us work productively and make meaningful contributions to our communities. Ways to help yourself maintain all of those positive mental health attributes is to get professional help if you need it, making sure that you're getting enough connection with individuals, because we're all very social people. Getting exercise, and a lot of other different coping skills that we'll be talking about in the future. So some of the early warning signs that there might be a mental health disorder or problem that's occurring is if people are eating or sleeping too much. If they're pulling away from people, they're usually really active people that like to go out and do things all the time, or hang out with lots of people, and they're not doing that anymore. They're just really lethargic and feeling like nothing really matters. Maybe, some pains in your body are psychological. And so, having some of those pains that you don't really have an underlying cause of why it's happening could be because you're having some distress, emotional distress. If people start, using drugs or drinking too much, that could be a common sign too. Not being able to handle when you are getting upset or worried and calming yourself back down. you start maybe feeling confused, and in future we'll talk a little bit about how stress and whatnot affects your brain, and so that is why some of those symptoms happen. If you are just ruminating on things over and over again and you can't get over it, that can be a sign that maybe you need to find some coping skills or talk to somebody to help yourself get through that. And then some of the more severe ones is, you know, if you're hearing voices or you believe that things are there that aren't really there, that is a true sign of some mental health distress. So the effects of stress. I wanted to talk a little bit about vicarious trauma. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that term before, but vicarious trauma is a process of change that happens because you care about other people that have been hurt and feel committed or responsible to help them. Like over time, it's a process that can change your psychological, physical, and spiritual well-being. And why does this occur? This can occur to all of us because we are in such a social field. It happens because you care so much and you empathize with those others and how they're hurting. You're empathizing right now, for instance, that, you know, there's people that are not able to work and aren't getting their unemployment checks, and that may take a toll on yourself. You can feel, you feel committed or responsible to helping and supporting those others, even at times when you're not able to. I think the bell is people coming in, and I can't do anything about it to turn down my volume because then you wouldn't hear me. So that was in the chat, sorry. So vicarious trauma also happens because a sense of responsibility to, you know, eventually contributes to you feeling burdened, overwhelmed, and helpless. And it can also lead one to extend yourself beyond what is okay and for your own well-being. So stress also affects a lot of stuff in our brain. There's a visual cortex, the limbic system, and the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is where decision-making happens. And oftentimes that is going to be affected when we are having stress. Sorry. Before I go on, this, well, I guess I can show you. This is a relaxed brain versus a stressed out brain. And I want to show a little TED talk quickly about what happens to your brain when stress is happening. I know the video will be kind of shaky, but it's really important just to listen to the words because that's what the important stuff is on it. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Are you sleeping restlessly, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, and feeling overwhelmed and isolated? Don't worry, we've all been there. You're probably just stressed out. Stress isn't always a bad thing. It can be handy for a burst of extra energy and focus, like when you're playing a competitive sport or have to speak in public. But when it's continuous, the kind most of us face day in and day out, it actually begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home, can affect brain size, its structure, and how it functions, right down to the level of your genes. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus-pituitary-adrenal axis, a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and on the kidney, which controls your body's reaction to stress. When your brain detects a stressful situation, your HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for instant action. But high levels of cortisol over long periods of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. And as levels of cortisol rise, electric signals in your hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memories, and stress control, deteriorate. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, so when it weakens, so does your ability to control stress. That's not all though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. It also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn and remember things, and also set the stage for more serious mental problems like depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. The effects of stress may filter right down to your brain's DNA. An experiment showed that the amount of nurturing a mother rat provides its newborn baby plays a part in determining how that baby responds to stress later in life. The pups of nurturing moms turned out less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors, which stick to cortisol and dampen the stress response. The pups of negligent moms had the opposite outcome, and so became more sensitive to stress throughout life. These are considered epigenetic changes, meaning that they affect which genes are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. And these changes can be reversed if the moms are swapped. But there's a surprising result. The epigenetic changes caused by one single mother rat were passed down to many generations of rats after her. In other words, the results of these actions were inheritable. It's not all bad news though. There are many ways to reverse what cortisol does to your stressed brain. The most powerful weapons are exercise and meditation, which involves breathing deeply and being aware and focused on your surroundings. Both of these activities decrease your stress and increase the size of the hippocampus, thereby improving your memory. So don't feel defeated by the pressures of daily life. Get in control of your stress before it takes control of you.
So what did you guys hear that was most important in that video?
Exercise and meditation.
Exercise and meditation, yeah. So this is a picture. Can you guys see my screen now? Of the brains? Yes, no? I can't see anyone.
Oh.
No.
No. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What I get out of that video is that stress can affect a lot of different things. It affects the size of our brain and the ability to receive and repeat information. So that could be like when you're stressed out and you walk into a room and you forgot why you walked in there, and then you have to like go calm down and think through it in a better way. It increases the cortisol, which can impact the way that the synaptic nerves in your brain work to talk to each other. And then it also increases cortisol level, makes your hippocampus deteriorate. And that is what is dealing with learning, memory, and stress control. I thought that this was kind of important information to think about when we're talking about students too. They're at home right now, especially stressed out, just like the rest of us are because of this pandemic. And so that's going to be harder for them to do that learning and memory and repeating that information. So you might have to repeat information to them more often. Maybe even in varying ways. So some ways for strategies for self-care. This little picture here, you got to nourish to flourish. I like that picture. It also reminds me of like when you're on an airplane and they say you have to take care of your mask before you can take care of other people's. So these strategies that I'm going to talk about, well, first I want to hear from you guys. What are some self-care strategies that you do? And then I'll go through my list. But these strategies are important for you to take care of yourself during these times, but also some that you could possibly be teaching the students. So does anybody have any self-care strategies that they find really useful for themselves?
Yeah, I did some grief counseling a couple years ago, and one thing that I did was sensory. So like taking a bath, something to do with, yeah, something just about getting in your body.
Yeah, that's a good one. I used to work in a prison doing mental health counseling, and we did a thing, it was called Soothe the Senses. And so there was a sheet that they had to write up that when they were distressed, that they would go through and soothe their senses. So it's really a mindfulness activity of paying attention to, like they'll eat some peanut butter and really pay attention to like what the tastes like, what the texture is in their mouth. Is it crunchy? Is it smooth? You know, those kind of things. And then you know, they did other stuff like looking at a picture that would help them visually, like looking at a picture that helps that sense, and going through each one of the senses to help themselves calm down. So that mindfulness activity, and anytime that you're focusing on something else, you bring it back to that, is really helpful. So thank you. Any other ideas?
There's a whole list of ideas in the chat.
Okay,
You want me to read all of those?
sure.
So-
Walking, hobbies, keeping in touch with friends, eating healthy, gardening, yoga, exercise, being outdoors, listening to music, social media cleanse, journaling, coloring, guided meditations and body scans, daily walks outside, more getting outside, grounding, breathing, exercise regularly, and keeping a schedule and being mindful of what you're going to do for the day. Make a plan for the next day.
Yeah, those are all great activities. Were you gonna say something? I don't know
So-
your name.
For me, it's being creative, doing arts and crafts. I'm a quilter, so just putting together those patterns and cutting up the fabric to put patterns together into a different pattern and all of that. And that's for me. I'll turn on my music and I'll go into my sewing room, and that's it. I'll be gone for hours.
Yeah, that's a great outlet. Okay, those are all great suggestions, and I'm going to talk about a few of them that you guys have already talked about. So, but maybe there's some in here that you haven't thought about. So aiming to exercise for 30 minutes or more per day. So even at break time, getting up for a short 10-minute walk and 10-minute bursts of activities, that can improve your mood for up to 2 hours, just that 10-minute short walk. So that's important. Doing some rhythmic exercise, which means that you're moving both your arms and your legs. It's hugely effective to lift your mood, increase energy, sharpen your focus, you know, all of those things. And it helps you relax your body as well. So, you know, doing walking, weight training, swimming if you have a pool right now, because obviously the gyms are closed, but martial arts, dancing, having a great time, just turning on your music and dancing is a great idea. Trying to find value. This is not necessarily an activity that you do, but like a thought process, trying to find value in what you do. So even if it's some little mundane job that you do in your work, but you know how it, you know, helps others, just paying attention to that. Finding some balance in your life. So finding that work-life balance, not working too much, making sure that you're finding satisfaction in other parts of your life, not just in work. For diets, like healthy diet, minimizing those sugars and refined carbs. Those things, we may be craving them when we're stressed out because they're comfort foods like the pasta or the French fries or chocolate, but those have high carbohydrate foods that will quickly lead to a crash in your mood and your energy. Making sure that you reduce intakes of adversely, you know, foods that adversely affect you. So the things that have high caffeine, trans fats, those kind of things, those can affect your hormones and your mood and energy as well. Eating more omega-3 fatty acids to help boost your mood. You know, the best source is eating from fatty fishes like salmon and whatnot, but you can get it from other things like seaweed or flaxseed, walnuts, that kind of stuff, or just taking fish oil pills. It helps with your mood. Avoiding nicotine, if that's a thing that you do, that is it's a powerful stimulant, and so it can lead to you having lots more anxiety, especially in a time when we're already having anxiety. That just increases the anxiety. Making sure that you're drinking alcohol in moderation if that's something that you partake in. Alcohol may temporarily get rid of or reduce the worry that you're having, but when it wears off, you can get an increase in anxiety then too. It's important to make sure that you're setting boundaries throughout your day, throughout your work, even at home. So not overextending yourself, learning how to say no. I know that's one of the hardest things for us to do, is to learn how to say no. Making sure that you request time to yourself. If you find it difficult, remind yourself that saying no allows you to say yes to other things. This is a big one, especially right now when we're all kind of in a virtual world, is like taking daily breaks away from your technology, just completely like unplugging, getting rid of that laptop and your phone and all of that, and quit checking your emails. Just be with yourself and do some mindfulness activities. Nourishing your creative side, like some people said. So this weekend I did a couple paintings and I painted some rocks and all of that, just to, you know, focus on something other than work or any of that kind of stuff. So finding a fun project, whether it's quilting or painting or, I don't know, gardening, I guess, could be a fun hobby that you do. Set aside some relaxation time. So doing different techniques like yoga, or that mindfulness activity of soothing the senses that someone was talking about, doing deep breathing activities. And that just is helpful for a state of restfulness. And it's actually the opposite of what our stress response is. So that it helps us bring our stress down. And then one of the biggest ones is getting plenty of sleep to make sure that you don't get burnout or feel just overwhelmed with things. Are there things in the chat?
Lisa, are you trying to forward slides?
I'm going to now.
Oh, okay.
It was clicked on something else. I think that one of the most important things that we should do too is to improve our self-talk. So I just liked this little picture on the side that, like, changing things to the positive instead of us feeling discouraged and thinking about it in the negative. So some of the examples are, this is tough, but so am I. I really like the one that says, I haven't figured this out yet. So it may be a problem currently, but you're going to figure it out sometime, just not right now. And all I need to do is take one step at a time, breathe, and do what the next right thing is. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how things are slightly different, or actually a lot of the same during the COVID time. So mental health symptoms that we talked about previously that could be early signs are happening during COVID as well, those same symptoms. Okay, there we go. Oops, sorry. So everybody is having a wide range of emotions and reactions, and some of us are having, you know, things that we've never experienced before. Maybe we don't have a diagnosis of anxiety, but we're having anxiety around this time because there's so many things to worry and panic and be concerned about. We're feeling helplessness because we can't help all of those people that aren't getting their checks, or the students that are out there and want to work, but we can't get them out to work right now. We're feeling socially withdrawal, especially people that, you know, have more extroverted personalities and want to be out there hanging out with their friends and doing activities. Difficulty concentrating and sleeping, and then sometimes we get that anger that's going on. So it's really important to think about making the choice of what you want to do during the COVID time. So there are people that are in the fear zone. That was especially in the beginning when people were like grabbing food and toilet paper and all of that stuff that maybe they didn't necessarily need that much of it, right? So they were living in the fear zone, and we want to get more towards the learning and growth zone in different things. So identifying your emotions and really living in the present and focusing on that, the future, being appreciative of new changes and how that can change in positive ways is important. One of the ways that you can do this is by asking yourself some daily quarantine questions. So you ask yourself, what am I grateful for today? Who am I checking in on or connecting with today? What expectations of normal am I letting go of today? How am I getting outside today? How am I moving my body? And what beauty am I either creating, cultivating, or inviting in today? So you could do this in keeping kind of a gratitude journal. You can think about it as like how you're going to contribute to your community. But these are just, or you can just ask yourself these questions without having to write them down too. Just to focus on the positive aspects that you can contribute to your community and yourself. So reaching out during COVID-19. We are talking about reaching out to students. You can reach out to them via texting or phone calls or virtual platforms. I think it's important to have like a schedule of when you're going to meet with the students so that they have something to look forward to. They know exactly when that's going to happen, and checking in how they're doing and with their mental health and whatnot as well, because these are changing times. And like I said, there's a lot of people that maybe have some anxiety that have never had or experienced that kind of mental distress before. So what are some things that you can teach students to reach out to help help in their communities so that they don't feel so isolated? Does anybody have some ideas? Any ideas from anyone?
I have a student that cannot, due to medical issues, go out right now, but we talked about as soon as she's able, like making goals right now and just brainstorming. And she just moved too, so like what's at the library, what does she want, and just kind of doing a lot of pre-planning around that. I did mention meetup.com, but again, that has to do with the parents and stuff. So they're just kind of now aware that that's an option. I'm not going to, go too far with that. That's for them to do, but just so that they know there's things online to be involved in as well that might be safe and engaging for her.
That's great. And that's forward thinking too. That's good to focus on the future and their goals.
We've set up Google Meets with our students so they can get classroom help and also just check-in times. So it's a set time every week at the same time. And also just encouraging the kids to come in for like the meal pickup, just getting out of their house and seeing some familiar faces when they come by the school helps.
That's great. Any other ideas?
I know that,
oh, sorry, go on.
sorry.
Okay.
I know that we have accommodation packets going out to students this week, and I kind of spearheaded. I was like, okay, if the case managers don't want to personally deliver them at social distancing, that I would do it. Since then, we have all case managers doing it sometime this week, but that way kids can see we're still here, we care.
That's great. And having those scheduled times that they can check in just in case they need that person.
We are going to start this Friday a job club, and it'll be a virtual job club for students, and all of our seniors that graduated have been invited to participate.
That's good. I see some things in the chat room too, that some people are sending letters to the elderly or helping with food banks or passing out stuff at their schools?
Crater High School is also doing a job club, and Cindy Cameron's been amazing at helping me get that together, and the students are really starting to take interest. So it'll be nice because that'll help us get to know some of the students that we can work in the summer with as well.
Great. It helps them get connections from other places as well. So that's neat that you guys are doing the virtual job clubs. Some of my ideas were creating special hellos or goodbyes. You know how I'm sure you guys have seen the different videos on like Facebook and things of like teachers that do different high fives and whatnot to say hi to them in the morning, but having the students come up with different hellos and goodbyes for each time that you guys are meeting or they're meeting certain people. Finding 3 buddies that they're going to check in with on a regular basis, having that scheduled out so that they don't feel so isolated. Putting signs up. So Tony DePeel, the pre-employment transition service coordinator for Portland Metro, puts different signs up in her window every single day. And there was actually a lady that like left a note saying that those are a real big hope and inspiration for her. So people, you know, they just have like the big, huge Post-it note things that she's drawing things and writing some encouraging quotes on that helps people. Phoning someone or having group texts, doing things like Hangout or Snapchat or whatnot, just make people laugh. Offering to have the students or you guys teach new skills to other people. So I think this is a great opportunity, especially during, you know, job clubs or you're getting together with your groups of individuals, having them teach some skill that they're good at. That's a good peer-to-peer mentorship. Getting out and getting fresh air, taking care of the self-care that we talked about earlier. Mailing letters to, I liked the one, somebody said mailing letters to the elderly, but even just mailing letters to their friends, like that's kind of a dying art. Actually writing letters and sending them out. So that's a great way. And who doesn't like getting something in the mail that's not junk mail, right? Sharing tips and resources online and taking a break when you need it. So, you know, having that moderation, that amount of moderation when you're doing technology stuff. Accessing online courses and maybe taking a course with someone. So there's a whole bunch of free courses, even like Yale is having a free course on like happiness and well-being. So you can pay to get a certificate in it, or you can just take it for free and learn all of those skills that the Yale professor is teaching. So do that with someone else so that you guys can discuss it and keep each other accountable. Getting access to the libraries have a lot of free online books and movie streams and magazines. So having that, and then doing video calls, whether that's to have a book club, just to say hi, or have a dance party with someone, which also helps you get exercise, right? Any other ideas before we move on to mandatory reporting? Oh, I've been also watching like the little videos from the live streams from like the Oregon Zoo, and I see somebody else said virtual tours of the state parks and museums. Those are great ideas. So during this COVID time, a lot of the kids are more at home, and this is probably even more of a time that we have to pay attention and make sure our kids are being taken care of. They're at home, and I know that statistics have said that domestic violence and abuse has gone up because everyone's stuck at home. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about mandatory reporting, who it is, where you contact, when you have to contact, and those kind of some resources that go along with it. So who is a mandatory reporter? Workers in certain professions have to make reports if they suspect abuse or neglect. And all of us that are on this call right now are mandatory reporters. We're called mandatory reporters, and it's a crucial link in the system to help Oregon's vulnerable citizens be taken care of, make sure they're not getting abused. Mandatory reporting must report suspected abuse or neglect of a child, regardless of whether or not the knowledge of the abuse was gained in the reporter's official capacity. What that is saying is that we are mandatory reporters, whether you're at work or you're off of work. 24 hours a day, you are required to make a report if you see something that is neglect or abuse. I think that's an important aspect, because I don't know that a lot of people, I think a lot of people think that you only have to do mandatory reporting when, you know, you're in your job and you're in that job capacity, and that's not true. It has to be all the time. So when do you report? When you believe that there's any child that can come in contact or has suffered with abuse, that's when you need to report. And you have 24 hours, I mean, you have a call line that you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to report that. It should be made immediately. And then I know that there's also some like stipulations for your school district of who you might need to report it to as well, but you should report it immediately during your work activities or your personal activities.
Can I add something for a second? Okay, so in my last job, I was also a mandated reporter, and I tried to call the state hotline, and it was always busy. And so, you know, it said, we'll give you a number line, we'll call you back when it comes. I never got a call back. So what I ended up having to do at that time was, because of the position I was in, I knew who the child was in foster care. So, and had disclosed something to me. And so I got a hold of the caseworker, that child's caseworker personally, and talked to them and reported it to them instead of the state hotline.
Okay.
So sometimes if there's a case where you know that and you know who the worker is, you might have to go directly to the worker.
That's a good, helpful hint. Thank you. Yeah, so the phone number that she's talking about right now is right up there. It's 1-855-503-SAFE. That sends you to the DHS, and sometimes, like she's saying, it can be kind of busy. You'll just have to keep recalling, or if you know that they have a case manager, contact them. You report it to you can also report it to your local DHS child welfare offices or your local law enforcement agencies. And then I said it once before, but I just want to say, just follow your school district's direction too, because they may have an additional place in your school if it's happening during school time that you need to report it. And I attached the link of where you can get the law to read all about mandatory reporting if that's something interesting to you. And then this lastly is the resources. I just wanted to talk about for staff, if you are feeling like you're needing to talk to somebody struggling right now, or even in the future, I think everybody has an employee assistance program that you can contact and have a couple of sessions for free with them. Private insurances will usually pay for it, or you can always pay out of pocket. But please, if you are feeling distressed or whatnot, this to make sure that you take the time to find somebody to talk to. Also, that you can contact the Oregon Health Authority, Addictions and Mental Health Services. There's a whole list of different places around, because I know we're all from, you know, all over Oregon, so I couldn't do specific to different places. So I tried to pick ones that, you know, you can get on there and find out who can help you in your area. Medicaid also has a list. There's also Oregon's 211, which is a free referral service. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. NAMI has a whole bunch of different places that are around Oregon, and then you can also contact your county mental health. And that is it. Any questions? Comments? Additional?
Lisa, one just popped up in the chat that's kind of important from Jessie Wilcox. She's basically saying that Oregon is now a statewide child abuse system, so no county child abuse screening options are available and operating. If you call the number, you're directed to the hotline.
Okay. I gained all my information from the DHS stuff on mandatory reporting. So if that, I did not see that listed anywhere, but if that's good information. And I saw a couple times, this PowerPoint will be up on the website, and it has all the links for the different things. So you can have the phone number for mandatory reporting and different places that you can be looking for mental health counseling for yourself and for students if you need.
And you go to the YouTube channel to access the whole recording. So remember, if you've missed any other ones that we've done, click on the YouTube channel and you can see past ones and this one.
They're also linked under resources with each individual event that we had with all the supporting documents.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, things that you guys are doing to take care of yourselves? Making sure you're taking care of yourselves and not having vicarious trauma. Walking is good.
Yeah, and like Amy from Sisters was saying, and this reminded me, when I run in the same place and I see just the changes every day. I see more animals out. It's like I have my peeps are now the birds and the things in nature, and just the changing colors and just noticing that. And Amy and Sisters was saying they had kids sit in the same place, for a few minutes and just notice all the changes that happen around us that when we're so busy, we forget about. And so that's one thing I've done a lot of.
That's great. Okay. Well, we're a little early, but if nobody else has anything, then I think that you guys can go enjoy your afternoons. Do something to take care of yourself.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was awesome.
Great day. See ya.